welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kelsey. Today I'm going to be talking about things that I wish I would have known before I did a Contiki. So if you're new here, I did a Contiki this year. I will go ahead and link it either one of the sides up here and as well as in the description box below. I did the Simply Italy Contiki, sorry that's my cat, and it was basically 15 days across Italy. Started in Rome, we saw Rome, Milan, Florence, Venice, Cinque Terre, Naples, Amalfi, so on and so on. I'll go ahead and link that in the description box below if you're interested. Over these 15 days, I basically got to meet a bunch of great people, as well as I got to experience a way of travel that I wasn't 100% familiar with. Seeing as a couple years prior to that, before COVID, in 2019, I had backpacked Italy with two other girlfriends on the ones that I went with the last time, and I loved it. I loved Italy. Partially why I ended up going back was because the friend that I went with, she had a credit that she basically had to use up from a trip that she had booked before COVID. COVID ended up canceling it, so she had to use it up by the end of that year, and I was shoo-in to go travel because I really wanted to see Florence, Venice, and Amalfi. So for me, I was sold. Part of my opinion is probably going to be based off the fact that I had already been to Italy prior, and because I often travel with friends and we don't do it in a group traveling setting, we do it on our own, we do it at our own pace, and we do what we want when we want, basically. I think that's why 90% of my opinion is the way that it is. That also being said, this video is not comparing group travel, solo travel. I'm gonna go ahead and do a different video about that. I'm probably gonna do basically a whole series where I talk about travel and travel experiences and tips, and maybe I'll give you the behind the scenes or nitty gritty of things that actually happened on my trips. The first thing that I wish I would have known is it is a lot of money. And yes, anytime you travel to Europe, anytime you're traveling, you should be anticipating you're going to spend a lot of money. That being said, I did do Italy the last time for 3 weeks, 21 days. We did 3 different places. We did Milan, Rome, and Cinque Terre, and we stopped in for Lake Como for the one day. We did all of that for under $3,000. That's including stay, flight, and money. This time, when I had to pay $3,500 just for Contiki, not including my flights, not including the vast majority of my meals, not including any of my spending, that's a lot. That's a lot. I think I ended up paying around $5,000, $6,000 this time for Italy compared to my $3,000. That being said, when I did the Simply Italy trip with Contiki, we did go to 15 different places. All of your stay is taken care of. 4 meals were taken care of. You did have a bunch of excursions that would take care of a lot of other meals, which was great, but was more money. I think for excursions alone, I ended up spending an extra 200 or 300 euros, which is a lot. Translate that to Canadian dollars, you're looking at about 400 to 500 Canadian dollars. It's taking away a lot of the stress of traveling. Part of the reason a lot of people don't travel is because they don't know how to plan it, or they don't know how to put things together, or where to find good deals, or where to stay. And for a lot of people, they're scared to stay in Airbnbs, or they're scared to stay in hostels because you don't know the area, you don't know where you're gonna be about. Guess what? The internet's great. There's reviews now. You can pretty much find out anything. So to pay so much for that luxury, as someone that plans, it wasn't worth it for me. I will say there are a lot of other Contikis that I've looked into. I really want to go to Egypt. Personally, I don't have any close friends that want to go to Egypt, and I just don't feel comfortable traveling to Egypt on my own. I know a lot of people that have done it, but it makes me a little bit nervous. I've been looking at the Contiki, and everyone that I've spoken to about the Contiki that has personally done it raves about the Egyptian Contiki. They say that it's great, it's worth all the money. Contiki in Italy wasn't worth it. I had already been, I could have done it for cheaper. It's a lot of money. I wish I would have known that before. Yeah, and the stays were pretty nice. I have heard from people that did like other Contikis that the stays were not worth it, but personally, all of the places we stayed were nice. I don't think there were any hotels that I was like, ew. The only one that was kind of a little bit sketchy was Venice. Another thing I wish I would have known is that Contiki has a lot of module trips. So what that means is your trip might be part of a bigger trip, might be the start of a trip, but then you're leaving while people are continuing, or you might be joining as people are leaving. Basically, they don't make it the easiest to find this out, which I didn't know about it until I had watched Corey. He did like a whole Contiki series and he was doing about 10 things that he wished he had known. So I kind of had an idea of certain things after he talked about it. That was when I looked up the brochure, downloaded the brochure, found out our trip was part of a trip. Our trip was actually part of 5 trips. That is including our trip, obviously. So my trip was Simply Italy for 15 days. We basically did all across Italy, and then we did along the coast, so Amalfi, stuff like that. There was also the Ultimate Italy. So Ultimate Italy was 20 something days. From there they ended up going to Sicily and they got to like see Sicily. Italian Espresso was the 10-day one that left us before we went to Naples. Italian Escape was basically where they did the coast, and that was, they joined us in Rome, and then we went to Amalfi and stuff like that. There was also Italian Escape and Sicily. Only reason I wish I would have known that, and it didn't personally affect me because my trip was so long, but I know for a lot of people that did the Italian Espresso, they wanted to come with us. There was a lot of them that were trying to see if they could add on and jump onto the rest of the trip, because you make these connections with these people and you're having such a good time, and we were partying, we were making all these friends, and then we just had to say goodbye. But then we're continuing on. And the thing that sucked about it is, this is another thing that I'm going to get into in another rule. You are so exhausted that when they were leaving on the 10 days and the new group was joining us, there was I think 40 something of us, and then 20 left and 20 more joined us to go do Naples and stuff like that. And this poor group of people that joined us, we were so exhausted, all of us. I remember the very first night that they joined us, they're all like super hyped and excited and fully charged and ready to like travel, and Contiki is known for drinking and partying, so they're ready to party it up. Nobody wanted to party. We all were so tired. We were exhausted. All we had done for the past 10 days was party. We were up every day on the bus for 7 at the earliest. And it's so hot that you're drained, and then you have the Contiki cough. This poor group of people joined us. We all are coughing. We all are exhausted. I think I was probably one of 4 or 5 people that ended up going out the night that everyone, like the night that they joined us. I'm gonna go into my next one. You are going to be exhausted, so please be prepared. What I mean by that is bring proper shoes. The weather that you were traveling in, be aware. We went in June. I've been to Italy in June. I knew it was gonna be hot. I brought my thigh rubby stick. I knew, I was prepared. I knew how to handle when I was overheating, because I do that all the time. I knew that I needed to stay hydrated. That means I was drinking water like there was no tomorrow. I knew all of that, but you need to be very aware of that. Bring medication. I'm prone to headaches. I had a large bottle of ibuprofen. You're gonna be hungover. Know how to take care of yourself and be prepared to get sick. I think almost all of us had a Contiki cough. Honestly, all of us might have had COVID by the end. There were 2 people on my Contiki that in fact did have COVID and ended up having to leave part of the trip and weren't able to rejoin us until the very end. So that's pretty shitty, not gonna lie, because they lost part of their trip. So be prepared for that. Be very aware. You are traveling with a bunch of different people from all over the world. It might happen. And the Contiki cough, I'm gonna tell you right now, that shit is serious. That shit sucks. That was awful. By the time we made it to Paris, our 3 days in Paris were not as good as they should have been, because we all were sick. There is a lot of drinking. I already know that. I'm a drinker, so that didn't bug me. I think I misunderestimated how much drinking there was. Every time we did anything, we basically were drinking, which was fun. But if you're not a drinker, I feel like that should maybe be advertised a little bit more. Once I booked my trip and I started doing research on it and I was watching Corey's videos and stuff like that, there was a lot of talk about like, oh, there's a lot of drinking, but if you don't want to drink, you don't have to drink. And that's 100% the experience. There were, I think, quite a few people on my trip that were sober, or they just didn't drink. They weren't into drinking. So that worked out for them. I wish I would have known about all of the add-ons. So what I mean by that is, originally when I went into the trip, I was like, you know what, these add-ons are more money. I've already been to Italy. I don't want to do a lot of add-ons. A lot of them just like weren't appealing to me. I was like, I don't care to do this, I don't care to do that. Like, I'd much rather just go like actually experience the city. Versus once I got there, there were quite a few add-ons that I was like, I wish I would have signed up to do that. That's something I will say is the add-ons are worth it. but you don't have to do them all. There were several add-ons that I didn't do. For example, when everyone went to the Colosseum, I was the only one that didn't go. I had already been to Italy, I had already done the Colosseum, but the excursions themselves were great. There were only maybe a couple that I was like, this wasn't worth the money. They do range in price. When you get there, you usually get a list and then you pay when you get there. There was the Naples food tour. Originally, I wasn't gonna do that, I hadn't paid for it, and I ended up messaging our tour guide and was like, you know what, honestly, I don't think I want to try to find somewhere to eat. I would love to jump on that tour. So I just went and did the tour myself. Sometimes the food on the paid dinners weren't great, but the excursion ones were always amazing. That wine tour in Lucca, I ended up buying wine. I brought wine home because I love wine. I'm a wine person. Another thing I wish I would have known is to get lost in the moment. So what I mean by that is I am a big planner. Not that everything in my life has to be planned to a T, but I do like to have an idea of things to do before I get there. And two of the best experiences that I had when I was on this Contiki, two of them were not even part of the itinerary. They were not planned. They just happened to happen. So they were due to our hotel getting canceled. We were supposed to be staying in CINQUE TERRE for 2 nights. And our hotel, something ended up happening. I don't know what happened with it, but it ended up not being able to accommodate us. So last minute, our poor tour guide in Contiki had to figure out something else, which was nice. That was nice. I will say that's one nice thing about Contiki is you don't have to worry about that. That was all taken care of. We just kind of showed up. So the one night we ended up in Beaufort, Idaho. I don't even remember the city of where it was. And we all were like, okay, like, is there a bar here? Like, we're gonna have to get drunk. We ended up all going down to the bar and bought like bottles of wine and sat in the one person's hotel room. And we just, I don't know if we went around the circle and asked questions or we just played drinking games, but that was so much fun. It was such a great experience. We did that twice. We did that another night when we were in Venice. The other time it was also because that hotel got canceled and we just ended up in this random village. Everyone was like, hey, let's all go get food. So I like rushed and got ready. The two people that I had gone with, they didn't want to go out right there. They wanted to take a nap. I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. I'm gonna go meet up with everyone else and go for dinner because I'm hungry. So I leave. We end up like walking into this random like pubish pizzeria, and me, my best buddy, and a couple other girls that were on the trip, we kind of all just looked at each other and we were like, not the vibe we're feeling. This isn't what we're feeling tonight. The four of us ended up just like wandering down the strip. We ended up finding this adorable mom and poppy kind of like actual like Italian authentic restaurant, and the food that night was immaculate. The conversation was immaculate. I needed to sit down with just a couple people and really actually get to know them in depth and not feel so pressured to interact with a group of people. And that was amazing. Those were two things that just happened by accident. So I wish I would have known to relax more and just go with the flow. That kind of leads into one of my other tips, and that was, or one of the other things I wish I would have known: travel solo. Honest to God, travel fucking solo. Do it once in your life, literally once in your life. This trip was probably one of the biggest eye-openings for that. I had only ever traveled solo once before, and it was to Ottawa in Canada, and it was like a paid trip with Canadian Blood Services, and I ended up meeting up with a group of people from all across Canada once I got there. So it wasn't even a solo trip, but there were so many people that were on my Contiki that were doing it by themselves, and I wish it didn't take me this trip to have that experience and feel like travel solo. That was one of the vast comments that I had gotten in conjunction with everyone on Contiki, is that doing a Contiki solo is better than doing it with a friend. Because when you're doing it with a friend, you subconsciously are almost trying to figure out like, well, what do you want to do? You don't want to do that, okay, I'm gonna stick with you. You're less likely to go off on your own. I just kind of went and did my own thing. If I wanted to go out, I went out. If I wanted to stay in, I wanted to stay in. If we wanted to do something together, we could do something together. And I think overall, traveling solo probably would have been better. And that doesn't mean you won't have a good time if you go with a friend. I think anytime you travel, you have to be very aware of the people that you're traveling with. Some people, sticking together is probably the way that you want to travel. For other people, maybe you travel and you don't get along and you find that out. Oh, another thing I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known it was so much fucking walking. Because your girl had just had spinal surgery literally like just a couple months before, and in my head I'm like, oh, it's a group tour, so it's gonna be on a bus, so we're gonna pull up to like places and just like get let off and have free time. No, that's not what happens. I can tell you that right now. You pull up outside the city and then you walk all around the city that you're in, and then you stop and you get like a couple hours or an hour to yourself, or you go do an excursion or whatever. Yeah, I didn't know that. Was not aware of that. Was not the end of the world, but I wish I would have been a little bit more aware of that. First of all, Amalfi, which I already knew Amalfi was a lot of hills and it was all like uphill. No baby, no baby, no, it is so much more uphill than you think. It is literally like uphill. My back could not do that. Did not know that. Had paid to do this lemon excursion. Was literally had to walk all the way up the hill to the top of the city, which I made it up there, whatever. The last thing I wish I would have known is I wish I would have known it would have changed my life. The trip for me had a lot of self-discovery. I met so many different people from all around the world. It was such a cultural experience and an exploration experience. I definitely think traveling in your 20s, everyone should do it. And if you do ever get the chance to do a Contiki, do a Contiki. It was so much fun, despite all of the negatives that I brought up in this video and all the negatives that I probably will talk about in another video. It was one of the most eye-opening experiences. There were people that had done 20 plus Contikis. Their experiences and the things they were talking about and just all the places they had traveled to and all the stories they were telling were amazing, and it really gives you this drive to travel, and then you create these everlasting bonds from people around the world. I have friends now in Australia and England and all around the world that I could meet up with or message to travel with. You're already exposed to a different culture, but you're meeting these people who have different lives and getting to know them. There were several days that it was kind of a euphoric experience. Was it a lot of money? 100%. Was it worth the money? No. Frankly, no, it was not worth the money. But those couple days or those couple moments of just pure euphoria, those were Contiki moments that people talk about that I will hold for the rest of my life. They're not some crazy story. They're not us getting like messed up. Like, it's not, they're sitting in a random town in Italy having one of the best meals I've ever had in my entire life and talking about life, or sitting on the back of a private ferry boat on your way back from Venice Island to everyone around you, just singing along and dancing and having such a good time and enjoying the sunset, and just, those are all the points that I can think of right off the bat. If you guys have questions about the trip or questions about travel or Contiki, go ahead and leave them in the description box below and I'll go ahead and answer them for you in another video. I am going to do a video where I talk about the comparisons of group travel and solo travel. Yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Love you. Bye.